everybody, and welcome to Command Point. It is the second day of Kill Team, and today we're shifting the picture over to the Novitiates from the Chalnath box, the Sisters of Battle bespoke team. And I'm joined here today by Kellen Foster, who played Novitiates at the U.S. Open. Kellen, how's it going?
Going well. I am ready to celebrate some arguably heretical holidays this month.
Yeah, right. How's it going with the novitiates lately? You've been pretty much playing them since they came out and like sticking to it pretty well.
Yeah, I've kind of been mainlining that team for the most of their run throughout the game. It's been going pretty well with them. I think that they are one of those teams that, if you really learn how to play them, they can really win you some games, especially if you're going to local tournaments and stuff. I think they're a very consistent pickup if you want to start winning tournaments.
Nice, nice. So, I guess as a starter, let's say somebody's trying to pick their faction and they don't own anything yet in Kill Team, but they're looking at the novitiates box. How would you describe the play style in kind of broad terms?
In broad terms, I would say that novitiates are a close range shooting army. You do have melee, and you
Mm-hmm.
do have some long range with like your plasma pistol with the strat and your crossbow. But your strength really lies in your ability to get up the board with conceal orders, denying your opponent the ability to take your people down, and then either getting within 2 inches to ignore their cover with your flamers, or getting other valuable shots like a valuable crack grenade throw by turn 2 and 3, and really using that to get your opponent out of position and hit them from pretty far away. You have a lot of methods to move, dash, and then shoot, which means that your models can really put a large threat over the board that your opponent really can't answer a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. So I guess with that in mind, what about that playstyle appealed to you when you chose to kind of like main this faction for a little while?
One of the big things that I enjoy in both 40K and Kill Team is certainty.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dice game, but the best players know that the way that you win a dice game is by minimizing the randomness of those dice,
Yes.
whether that's by getting bonuses to hit or just kind of increasing the odds in your favor. And novitiates are all about that certainty. The acts of faith mechanic is really good for that. If you need to make a shot land, you can make that shot land if you have the resources to do it. And kind of going along with that certainty is the idea of like having your flamers or your grenade throwers sitting pretty far back and just knowing, hey, I can threaten the entire midboard from this position right here, and you can't reach me.
Yeah.
Like if you want to move forward and start to play the game, I'm going to punish you for that. And I can almost guarantee that I'm going to make that play. And so that certainty of knowing that they can't really react to the threats you put down early in the game is very appealing because it adds to that certainty when you're playing against skilled players.
Nice. Yeah, and those acts of faith being able to like guarantee things to some degree are really powerful. Really, really
It
powerful.
is it is incredibly powerful, and I feel like if you go from that and immediately into a team that like needs a lot of 4 ups, like
Yeah.
Pow or Harlequins, it gets very frustrating because like, what do you mean I can't just make all my saves immediately?
Yeah, yeah. So how about like learning curve wise? So let's say they've picked novitiates and they're gonna stick to this team. For you, roughly, like how many games did it take for the team to start like really clicking and making sense and like the play pattern starting to like make way in your mind?
um, I would say that like with most teams, it took me about 10 games to kind of really get down their main play style, but then it took me maybe 20 more to kind of bring that into its own and start to not only show signs of like this team's identity, but also the tricks and the shenanigans that you can pull with them. Um, like, let's say, like, if you play it consistently for like a few weeks, if you get like 10 to 20 games with them, uh, you should be able to see like what kind of tricks you are able to pull. with that team. So they take a little bit more investment, especially when it comes to the resource management of the faith points as well. But that time you invest into learning the skill for this team is highly rewarded.
Nice. Good to know. And so let's say I'm going to paint a picture for you. Let's say you're playing at a tournament and it's your turn, and I am walking by and I'm looking at the tables, and I stop at your table and it's your turn, and I watch for about a minute or two. What is the coolest, flashiest play that you can imagine Novitiates pulling off that would like grab a spectator's attention?
Um, well, I think there is one person in particular who really takes the cake for this, and that is the novitiate penitent. This
Okay.
is like your Sister Repentia person with the big chain sword, and she has several rules that make her really prone to just make play of the games consistently. Like she has been very often my MVP.
Okay.
First thing is that she can fight twice for one action. So I've had people just walk by and overhear my opponent go, "Wait, that person fights twice," and then I kill two of his important models,
Yeah.
and that swings the game. Uh, but then also when she gets a certain buff from the exact or the whip lady, she can gain inches to her movement and an APL. So now she also has the ability to sit in your deployment zone, run like 11 inches forward, and throw a crack grenade, which is something that your opponent can almost never answer.
Yeah.
So she can do things like that. She can run in, hit someone, and then shoot someone with a pistol. That model in particular just has a smorgasbord of ways that you can be flashy and do multiple things, take out multiple operators in one activation, move at Mach 5 and take out a key opponent that your opponent didn't even know you could touch.
Yeah.
So she is one of those catalysts for plays like that.
Yeah. She's very fast and very lethal. I've noticed in my games playing against novitiates. Um,
Yeah, and don't let people forget that also if you whip her twice, she gets +4 inches to her movement and just becomes even faster.
Crazy. Yeah, I've seen that play. So how about matchup wise? So what would you say are their best matchups? I guess to start, like as far as what you're going to run into in the competitive meta, like what do novitiates do well against?
I often like seeing on the other side of the table from me teams that have fewer models than I do. Um, Novitiates are a 10 model team, so if I'm seeing like an 8-man team or a 6-man team, I'm generally pretty happy because novitiates love to trade. They
Mm-hmm.
love to go up, take out a model or two, and that person's probably going to die in return because they're not that tough. But you've already swung the balance of power, and it's like, oh, well, you're down to 7. I still have 9 people to work with.
Yeah.
So teams like um, uh, the Space Marine teams, I
Mm-hmm.
generally find myself being okay with fighting against. Also because we do have access to either mass shots or AP, like the plasma pistol or the flamers. Doesn't matter how many wounds you have, a Space Marine only gets 3 saves.
Yep.
Um, and then I have had some success into Void Dancers as well, because even though they are really good with their melee, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, is one of our weaknesses, if they are only killing one person at a time and you're able to get that kill back in return, you are still winning that fight.
Right.
So generally, I would say teams that lack a lot of AP and have fewer models than you can really start to struggle against a skilled novitiate player.
Nice. And so let's talk about bad matchups now. Let's flip it on the other side. Are there things that you think personally that novitiates do not have great matchups into, or things that they might struggle against?
Yes. So this is something that I learned very early on, and that anyone picking up novitiates will figure out very quickly, is that we do not have a lot of ways to avoid AP if they're able to get shots on you,
Yep.
as well as melee, because that's guaranteed damage. Your miracle dice can only make saves that you are able to roll. So if someone has AP2 against you and you're only making one save, tough luck, that person's probably going to die no matter how faithful you are.
Yeah.
So teams like Hunterclade
Yep.
are really tough matchup. I mean, Hunterclade's kind of a tough matchup for everyone right now,
Yeah.
but particularly for novitiates, because novitiates will have like 5 to 6 offensive models and then some support models. Hunter Clade, everyone is deadly, and everyone either has really good melee or access to AP and can really play against your weaknesses, which is the fact that you only have a 4-up save and 7 wounds.
Right.
So you really do often, if you're not initiating the combats, lose fights to those Rust Stalkers. Additionally, kind of in the opposite of what I was saying, our strengths are against enemies. Teams with more models than us can also be punishing, like veteran guardsmen, because, like I said, since we want to trade, if we are trading 1-for-1 and we, are going to be losing that trade war, because if we're going 1-for-1, they'll have more models before we're tabled. That has to kind of change up your game plan. It means you can't be throwing people out Hail Mary to try to take people down and then lose the person in return. You have to do a different game plan that is a little harder for novitiates to pull off.
Gotcha. And something else I wanted to bring up was novitiates were doing really well for a while, and as a result, they got some nerfs. One of their equipment pieces went from 1 equipment point to 2, and there was a change to how you can modify results that have already been modified with the faith points.
Yes,
So
you can't like auto succeed something that's already been re-rolled.
yeah. So how big and like how much do you think these changes hurt novitiates? Like, do you think that they're still kind of the same beast for the most part, or was this like a huge blow?
I'll take them kind of one at a time. So the equipment nerf, you're not really feeling at all.
Okay.
So I basically went from taking a crack grenade on the penitent, icons of faith on the penitent and the crossbow, and then 3 chastisers, 1 for the superior and 2 on the flamers,
Okay.
to the same layout, but just a chastiser on the superior and then nothing on the flamers.
Yeah, because they already hit on 2s, so I guess that makes sense with a lot of
They already
hits.
hit on 2s, and if you have the faith points left over and they do roll some 1s, you can still re-roll those,
Yeah.
just baked in. So that honestly doesn't hurt too bad. And it also, since you're only using 1 chastiser, I found when you're going up against teams like Gellerpox and they're like, oh, that really good piece of equipment, I'm going to spend a CP to make that cost 3 now. It's like, well, I had 1 left over anyway, so you did nothing. Thank you for giving me one of your command points.
Yeah.
So that one honestly is not that big of a deal. And also I think is probably reasonable. That was a really good piece of equipment for 1 AP.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other nerf, the faith point modification, you do feel, but I think it was appropriate. I don't think they hit them too hard with that. It means that it's not like totally broken in the way that, oh, I'm going to spend 1 to see if I get to hit for cheaper. Oh, I missed anyway? Okay, I'll just spend 2 more and make it hit anyway.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, well, what's the point of even shooting if you know that you're going to be able to hit with everything?
Right.
So kind of adding that uncertainty, and oftentimes it's like, oh, I've overcharged my superior, and even though she's got the chastiser, she rolled a 1. If I re-roll that into a 1, I'm going to take 4 mortal wounds and can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it means that you're more incentivized to go for spending more often. And so I think that you do feel it. You do find that if you are shooting a lot and missing a lot, you will be spending more faith points, and you'll be down on your resource for later in the game. But again, I think that it's something you can still play around, and it doesn't break the team at all, in my opinion.
For once you kind of like for you once you had gotten those games in, there's probably, and this goes for a lot of teams, there's a point where there's like something clicks for you where you realize like one thing that helps out like a ton, like a level up almost. So like what's like a special kind of like secret tip for somebody that is getting into novitiates that is going to help their game out, like kind of out the gate?
I would say don't underestimate the militants in your team. The militant is like the basic trooper, and a lot of the time they do get written off by some players because, oh, it's just a person with a pistol and a sword.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at the stat sheet and it's like, oh, that sword hits for damage 4 or
Yeah,
5 and it has balanced and
it's
hits
good.
on threes and you have faith points. And suddenly it's like, oh, you mean I can relatively consistently kill 8 wound enemies, which is a lot of the opponent's pool. Like I can charge a Harlequin and kill him with this person who's just
Mm-hmm.
a basic novitiate.
Yeah.
So I would not be afraid to field one of those in place of, say, um, a Dialogus in some matches. You do lose your comms, but depending on your matchup, you don't always need that additional source of +1 APL on top of what you get from your exactor.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just want the extra punching power, even if it's just to have someone that says, hey, you can charge me with your big scary melee guy, but I'm going to do 5 damage before I die. And having an additional person for those threats sometimes does come in very handy.
Nice. Cool to know. So, I have one question for you that you are not prepared for that I'm asking everybody. Do you have a favorite Christmas song? And if so, what is it?
Oh. um, it's got to be one from my childhood. It's not a good song, but it's a classic.
Okay.
Did you ever watch the SpongeBob Christmas special?
Oh man, I think I did.
Do you remember when they put up the Christmas tree in front of SpongeBob's house and all the people at Bikini Bottom are like standing around it? And the only lyrics to the song is just Santa's coming tonight, tonight. Santa's coming tonight. Uh,
Oh,
that
yes.
song, yeah, it's not a good song because those are the only lyrics. But
Yeah.
when I was a child, I would sing that with my brother ad nauseum at the dinner table with my family, and it drove all of them insane. And for
Amazing.
that, I have to by default put that as my favorite Christmas song.
Wonderful. I'm getting a lot of different answers on these questions, and it's really interesting to hear that. So, as we wrap this up, thank you, Kellen, for coming on and talking to me about novitiates here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And final words, if you're watching or listening and you're not subscribed, please consider giving us a subscription. We are at close to 7,000 subscribers. And as always, special shout out to everybody at patreon.com/commandpoint and our YouTube membership members that we recently started. So you guys have a good one. This is the second day of Kill Team talking about novitiates. Signing out.